Yoshinobu Yamamoto is back, and boy, is he back. Bobby Miller is bad, and boy, is he bad. We're going to dive into the pitching situation, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we've seen from the Dodgers, especially this last week. Also, Shohei Ohtani closing in on history. And unfortunately, there's a new idiot on the Dodgers roster. All that and more. My name's Ryan Bershinger. She is Monse Bolaños. This is the Sick Podcast, the Dodgers Zone. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. The Dodgers Zone.
At first, strike three. Dodgers have won it all in 2020.
Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990. If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky.
The sickest LA Dodgers podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Well, Monse, you're here. You made it out of Ohtani bobblehead night last week, and you made it out of Oakland for this one. So,
yeah, no, things are looking up for me. That's for sure. Yeah. Definitely. Things are not looking up for certain people on the Dodgers roster, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we are going to talk about your quick trip to Oakland and back to see the A's in person during their final couple weeks at the O.co. But that's for the end of the show, because right now we're going to talk Dodgers. So first, let's see the big story of this past week. Obviously, yes, Ohtani's continued pursuit of 50-50 has been phenomenal, and his numbers continue to rise. But I first want to start off with pitching, because we had the big return of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Comes out against the Cubs, who are playing rather well. Took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers, unless you ask whoever runs MLB's Twitter. Then the Dodgers swept that series. So congratulations. Yeah. We gained another 3 games there. Hell yeah. Awesome. Yamamoto looked fantastic. 4 innings, 1 run on 4 hits, striking out 8. It felt like he struck out 88. Like he was dealing. Yes. Nobody could really hit anything against him. Monse, what are your thoughts and feelings about Yamamoto's return?
So I don't know if I'm just being a little pessimistic as a fan, because, we see the good, the bad, and the ugly, like you said. So I was super happy with what I saw with Yamamoto, but there's always that feeling. It's like it was his first outing. I would like to see another one. Then it would really make me feel comfortable, because I was afraid that they rushed him back because of all the injuries, especially Gavin Stone's latest injury. I just was afraid that maybe he wasn't, not that he was in a bad position or in bad shape, but that maybe we just rushed it a tiny little bit because of all of the other injuries. But he was out there and he looked super comfortable. It looked like he had control. It looked like he was ready. But there is a pessimistic side of me that I'm just okay, one outing, I would really like to see another one. And I don't know if it's because we've had so many pitchers return and then they come back for their first outing back. And it's okay. And then the next one is absolutely nothing like their first outing. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit pessimistic about it. But no, he looked great. He really, really did. And we need him, because we're getting close to the end, Ryan. And this is where I'm optimistic. See, this is where I am optimistic about it.
Okay. We'll turn it. Yeah.
I'm going to turn it. We may not know what the starters are going to look like. We may not know 1, 2, 3, 4, but I feel like this is a good thing that the Dodgers are in an uncomfortable position, because they're not used to being uncomfortable this late in the season. They are used to cruising through the end of September and waiting for October. And so maybe this is the good side of things, that they do have to really take every single game seriously, because everyone is on each other's asses. There's, in the National League, everyone's on each other's asses. Even the Cubs, 5 games out of the final wild card spot, they don't care. They think they think they're going to get in there. 100% they think they're going to get in there. And so it's a good thing that we are uncomfortable right now just with these questions. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. I think that brings up a good point, where I think that the Dodgers are really at the sweet spot in terms of their division lead right now. You've got the 5-game lead. So there is the cushion where they can still, kind of let up on the gas a bit, but not too much. So I think that puts them in a good spot. And yeah, when we're looking at the rotation, of course, the latest injury to Gavin Stone, which I believe officially makes it every single starting pitcher for the Dodgers this season has been hurt. He was like the last holdout. He was the last one who was holding strong. That one is scary because he really does add a nice amount of length to that starting rotation when you get into the postseason, because thankfully having Yamamoto back and looking as sharp as he did, it makes you feel very confident that he could even go in a game one in a series. Like because we'll have to see what Glasnow looks like in terms of rushing people back. I feel like with Yamamoto, he did have a good amount of rehab starts. He was out for practically 3 months. So I think, and this is something that the Dodgers like to do and they've done in the past, especially late in the season with large leads, is they'll give them, in essence, rehab starts at the major league level. So like we saw Yamamoto on a tight pitch game, 4 innings, he was at 59 pitches. And his next outing, he'll probably be pushed up to like 75. It sounds like the last I had seen was that Glasnow might not even do a rehab start, thereby making him, do his rehab starts at the major league level. And we'll kind of see that same sort of pitch count with him. And if Glasnow looks good, that's the only one where I'm like, they might be quote unquote rushing him back because they kind of need to. He needs to get ramped up and ready for the postseason soon enough. But I think, honestly, when I look at this rotation, I can't help but keep thinking about the state of the rotation last season going into the postseason, where you got, the longest start was like 2 innings in the postseason. Right. So I think because of that, maybe I feel too comfortable with the starting rotation, because this injury to Gavin Stone does add this sort of wrinkle to it. But, Jason Smith on Fox Sports Radio was talking about, and he said it to me before he went on air with this take, and I thought it was a joke when he was saying it to me. But he was like, hey, I don't know, that Dodgers rotation, like the Mets rotation could handle it pretty easily, because you figure you can go Sean Manaea in game 1 and Luis Severino in game 2, and now suddenly you're backed up to the back parts of that Dodger rotation. And I'm thinking, do you actually think that Sean Manaea and Yoshinobu Yamamoto are on the same level? Are one of the same. Okay. I thought he was kidding when he said that take to me, and then he went on air with it, and I'm like, oh, well, no, I get that. Manaea, yes, has had a solid season. He's rebounded from being like one of the worst pitchers in baseball in the year before that. But I mean, I can't imagine if we had Sean Manaea as our number 1 going into the postseason, I'd be freaking out. It's like Jack Flaherty's better than he is. So like that's our third. So yeah, I still think that we'll have to see what Glasnow looks like, because if he's at 100% going in, we have a very strong 1, 2, 3, and then you're kind of determining what we do at 4 there.
Yeah, I'm fine with Glasnow just coming straight back to the majors and giving it a go. How long has he been out? A hot second. So I don't feel like he's been rushed back. You know what I mean? I feel like they really were extra cautious with him, because we talked about this months ago, maybe at this point, that he was reaching his max innings that he's ever had in a season. So we knew that they were just going to be extra cautious with him. And in reality, to me, it's just like minor league and major league don't compare. Like, you having a good outing in minor league to me means really little. It's more like, okay, you're doing it just to get in a rhythm of a game is the only reason you would really do it. But I'm saying, put him out there now. Let's see how he feels, because that would answer a couple of the questions, and it would alleviate the feeling of like, okay, all of these injuries, but we're headed into the postseason, and it seems like, they're coming back at the right time. So I hear you. I'm again, I don't know if I'm just being pessimistic just because we're fans and we can't be like, everything's great, because we've felt that before many times, and then it all just went crashing down. So I understand you, even though I am a tiny bit pessimistic of the pitching staff going into the playoffs. But in reality, it's like everything you said is true. We are in what seems to be a good position.
Yeah. I would say so. The new wrinkle that we're facing with the pitching staff, as I mentioned, is Gavin Stone's injury,
Yes.
which is super unfortunate because he's had such a great season. He has been an incredibly dependable arm and a very necessary one, given how rocky of a season it has been for Walker Buehler, how it's been even more rocky for Bobby Miller, how River Ryan got a cup of coffee and then disappeared, how Dustin May has not existed. Tony Gonsolin apparently is going to exist again. That should be interesting.
Yeah, I was not expecting that one, but he's out there. Okay.
Yeah. Emmett Sheehan did not exist this season. Landon Knack has been up and down, and he's been given some good outings when he's been given the chance. And of course, Clayton Kershaw having the sort of abbreviated season. Gavin Stone has been a stalwart in this rotation. And to lose him at this point to injury, it's pretty heartbreaking because you don't want to see that to happen to anyone, but he was the one guy where you're like, you could see him finishing this season strong and being an important piece in the rotation and an important piece in this rotation moving forward for years to come. It's been an incredible season for him. This sounds like a eulogy. I hope to God it's not, but it doesn't seem very positive in terms of the news there. If it's his shoulder, then that is definitely reason to be concerned. But if he is able to give it a go in the postseason, he should be penciled in as the number 4 starter. Because quite frankly, he's the best that we have.
Trustworthy
yes.
all season.
And to lose him at this point really, really sucks. Because it sucks, especially because Bobby Miller has been so bad. And
so bad. And I don't know. I don't even know. Like, do we keep him around and move him to the pen, or like when if we do use him, let's just hypothetically say we need him because Stone doesn't come back, and you make him like one of the starters in whatever game 5 or 6 with the expectation that he's only going to pitch 2-3 innings max. But what did it take him 32 pitches in the last game against the Cubs, the first inning, 32 pitches to get out of it, but then the second inning 10 pitches. So it's like it's hard to make a decision on Bobby Miller, like whether he should be on the roster or not. Like, I don't, because it's like you have these moments, you have these innings where like it seems like it's there, but then you lose control, and like it doesn't seem like he knows how to take the control back when he's down.
Yeah, it's really hard to say what to do with him because, as you mentioned, for example, in his most recent outing, he really labored in the first inning. So typically that's not somebody you look at and say like, well, let's just move him straight to the bullpen, because if he's coming out for one inning, that was kind of the one inning example. I understand that warm-ups are different for relievers. The whole process is different for relievers. And maybe that's something that could work for him in the future. But unfortunately, we're so late in the season that if we're going to take Bobby Miller and turn him into a reliever, that kind of needs to be done over the offseason and then into spring training. And that's a gigantic conversation that the entire staff will have in terms of evaluating like what really is his problem, because he's obviously talented. Like we've seen it. His rookie season, he had starts where he was phenomenal. He was a very highly touted prospect coming up. So it's hard to really say like what to do with him at this point. He obviously he shouldn't even be on the playoff roster unless you throw him into the bullpen in the last week or two and he shows you something out of the pen where maybe as a one inning guy, it might be interesting to add him to the pen, because as of right now, I think there is kind of a spot open in the pen where they could bring in somebody who could be of interest like that. I think that there's a very real possibility that person ends up being Tony Gonsolin, which I find to be fascinating. And Gonsolin's another guy too, where I think that a transition to being a reliever would make sense for him, because he always struggled with stamina, but he was very effective at getting outs. He's not an overpowering pitcher by any means, but he has great control. And when his breaking stuff is on, he's very hard to hit. and he could be somebody who's very interesting to add to the playoff roster to maybe eat up 2 innings in a playoff game when that's necessary. He could also be a guy who can get outs when called upon, because I think we're very fortunate. The bullpen is rather loaded right now. We saw last night against in the series finale with the Cubs, when the bullpen was called upon after Bobby Miller, they were all fantastic until you got to Kopech, who was just kind of missing up a bit. But outside of that, Kopech has been excellent, of course, since he's joined the Dodgers. So really, luckily, like Blake Trinan has been pretty locked down since he came back from injury. Daniel Hudson is starting to look better. Evan Phillips has been more dependable. Ryan Brazier has been more dependable. So, and now we're adding Brusdar Graterol to the bunch, which is very exciting. He finally finished an inning. So congratulations, Brusdar. You have completed an inning in 2024. We made it.
Yes,
there was a time we thought it wouldn't happen.
Literally after that freak accident. Like, it was just like, bro, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, you're right. The pen is looking really good. And if we were to add Tony Gonsolin to that, I would be a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Tony Gonsolin. Like you said, it's not that he has the nastiest stuff, but for some reason his stuff is very effective when he's on. And I could use that an inning or two. Like obviously I would take 6 innings, but maybe that's for next year. Maybe just to get him back up, we take it easy with him. I just having all of these options, is that also a bit of a problem? Because it's how are you going to make the decisions?
Yeah. It's a little bit of, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none, right? Like it's
a little bit, yes, like a little bit of that, And so I guess I'm glad I'm not making the decisions, because I don't know what you value at this point. Because they all give you something else. And Michael Kopech, I'm not even judging that outing.
Right.
It was a rough outing from the beginning. Any pitcher having to come in after Bobby Miller had such a rough couple of innings, that's a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
And so not even looking at it. But how do you decide, at this point? So that's another reason I'm a little pessimistic on the situation. Because I'm just glad I'm not making the decisions, because I really don't know what you value over what when it comes to the postseason. Because everything changes in the postseason. Mentality changes in the postseason. Teams change their approach in the postseason. So it's
I think as for right now, if Gavin Stone is unavailable in the postseason, I think you have to go with Walker Buehler as the 4th starter. And he has had a couple starts recently that were better. He's had a couple starts that weren't that great. Buehler's having a season where he'll go out one day and it looks like he's taking a step in the right direction, and then he'll immediately take a step back the next start, and it goes back and forth. It's not been a roller coaster season. It's more like the cha-cha slide season for Walker Buehler. He's just taking a step forward and a step back constantly. That's all he's really doing. But if we want to get sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? What I want to say is that Walker Buehler in the postseason is the man with the mentality for that job. Like he does rise to that. Okay, he does rise to the occasion mentally. He's a guy who is very much guided by emotion, can get fired up, and I think that maybe that extra edge is what will help him lock down in the postseason. And I'm not talking about seeing, another 7-8 innings of 1 run on with 10 strikeouts. That Walker Buehler is not around right now. I don't know if he'll ever be around again, but I could very much see Buehler being able to be a guy who goes 5 or 6 innings in a game 4 with only, 2 runs given up, strikes out 6 or 7, and is able to pass the baton and keep the Dodgers in contention in that game to win. Again, he is a guy with that bit of bulldog mentality and we've seen his velocity on occasion tick up here and there. Maybe the bright lights of the postseason is what fully brings that back for him. I don't know. Again, that feels a little, it's just kind of vibes, I guess. I don't really know what the word I'm looking for. This is a fully vibes take, but Bueller is kind of a vibes guy. So maybe that's something that could happen.
I don't disagree with you, and I think experience goes a long way under the big lights. And I do think like he is one of those that would rise to the occasion when needed. And like you said, he hasn't been terrible the entire time. That's not it. It's just he's not the exact same guy we saw, at one point last year before or 2 years ago before he got hurt. It's been so long that it's like I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I do agree with you. I feel like I would trust him. And I think that's where it comes down to like these decisions. It's like, who do you trust when it comes to the postseason? And experience has to be valued. And like, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but like Anthony Banda, like, bro. We have 76 people on the injured list. And you get mad and you punch something. Yeah. When we have used, like, you have been also an important piece to the Dodgers and this pitching staff. That really like upset me so much because it's like it is unfair when you are not a Shohei Ohtani, when you are not a Kershaw, when you are not a Bueller, who maybe you have already delivered and you've already proven yourself. It's not fair to you because you, Anthony, more pressure was on you to not do that. I know it's not fair, but it's true. You doing that like really screwed, I think, a lot of what the decisions that the Dodgers were having to make going into the postseason. Like, why did you do that? Why did you? You're a pitcher and you punch something. Like, couldn't you have thrown something? Couldn't you have thrown a glass, a plate? But you punched something. Like it. It really bothered me when I heard that story.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Especially like use his left hand. Like if you're gonna punch something, at the very least, use your non-throwing hand. Like, what are you doing?
You have access to so many bats that you could have hit something with a bat. Yeah. Like legit. I understand being frustrated and wanting to release it. Like, get the bat and hit the door that Yesel Puig hit on the way out years ago. Get the bat and hit the thing that Chris Taylor hit not too long ago where they hold the bats and they hold the helmets. There was just so many other ways to release the stress that because nobody would have blamed you. Nobody would have blamed you if you would have broken something, but not your damn hand. Not the hell. I'm sorry. It's very upsetting.
No, like I fully understand. And
like
I kind of, on one hand, like, poor choice of words. On one hand, I feel bad for him because he's also harming like the peak of his career.
Yes.
Like, he's been a journeyman left-hander. He's bounced around from team to team, and the Dodgers took him and like turned him into a very valuable middle reliever. And we're getting towards the postseason where he should be a lock to be on the roster if he's healthy. And then he kind of screws that up because of a moment of weakness is what I'll call it. A
moment of weakness. And like, yeah, it's like, I understand, like, it's unfair that you had so much pressure, but you do, like, everybody had to step up throughout the season. The pressure has been spread everywhere. And at the worst time, you let the pressure get to you in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it sucks. It does suck. And I feel bad for him, but it's like, man, you're really annoying. You're really annoying. Yeah.
Well, it's just the Dodgers have found every way possible to have an injury to their pitching staff this season. So we can check off a new one there.
It's unreal. It is unreal.
Yeah.
If you wrote this for like as a Hollywood script of a baseball team, the Hollywood would be like, no, nobody would believe that you had 77 pitchers injured in one season.
Man.
Oh, but we did. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah. To wrap up the point of the pitching conversation here, I know we haven't really even talked about we talked about Kershaw's injury last time. But in terms of kind of where he's at, with Stone's injury, it does open things up more to the possibility of Kershaw being a starter in the postseason. And again, like last time I talked about, like I would be good with leaving Kershaw off the roster, assuming that the rotation was fully healthy. But if Gavin Stone is not there now and you're looking at that fourth starter, it will be between Buehler and Kershaw then. And if it's between those two guys, I am comfortable with Kershaw being opted to get that spot, because it's entirely possible then that Buehler also is on the roster as that last pitcher in, as a bulk innings reliever, potential spot starter, kind of used creatively. Maybe it's a Kershaw Buehler piggyback for 6 or 7 innings. And that would be fine. I do think that right now, I would opt for Buehler as the starter in Game 4. But that will also depend on when we get there. And let's, I mean, if it goes the same way the last couple postseasons, we're not even having a Game 4 anyway, so this is all pointless. But let's say, like, if the Dodgers were like up 2-0 or even split, we'll get there when we get there. I think that there might be reasons to kind of be a little bit creative with the rotation and maybe have like a Kershaw Buehler in Game 3 and have Flaherty in Game 4, depending on the positions of, where they're at in the series at the time. But also, like, shout out Jack Flaherty for being excellent. And I would really be happy if they extended him in the offseason, or re-signed him rather.
Thank goodness. That we have Jack on the roster, because it did alleviate really a big hole. Who, again, it's just, we weren't expecting Gavin Stone to go down, and so now it's even more, we're even more grateful for him, right? I will say I might disagree with you that I would start Buehler over Kershaw, but it really depends on the situation. It really does, and it's not that it's a coin flip, even though you could. I bet you that's probably what they're gonna do, coin flip. Like, if Kershaw's foot is good, if his toe is good, whatever injury he's got, he's been pitching with his foot on a chair, like he's still out there. I don't know if you saw that. Maybe I saw that in person. I'm picking that up. I 100% saw that.
Great.
He's in the bullpen and he has a chair, and so he's kind of like leaning on the chair with one leg up, kind of like a flamingo. But the bad leg, so he's not stepping, but he's throwing, and he's throwing hard. Not like he is out there still trying to keep the arm going. So I think, like, if the foot's good, if the toe's good, and he can actually push off whatever it is, I do think I would give the edge to Kershaw over Buehler. But I don't know if that's just me being a little bit of a homer in the sense that it's Kershaw. Like, I don't, know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. But I do think that the situation will determine the decisions that the pitching staff makes. Yeah. But obviously Yamamoto 1, right? And Glass now 2. And then from there, it's like, okay, how do we approach it? And it depends. I think, like, you hit it on the money. What is the record? Are we up 2-0? Are we split? I think all of that's going to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One last point about pitching. We've spent all this time on the pitching side, but I think that's where the more interesting stuff is happening, even though, yes, Ohtani is chasing history, but then outside of that, it's not much. James Paxton announced that he's retiring at the end of this season. And yeah, isn't it weird he was on the team this season, by the way. I think it is oddly, it's not been that long, but it feels like a really long time ago that James Paxton was on this team. I think we do need to address that the James Paxton move was a mistake. I do not think, because of the amount of injuries that we had in this rotation, not because Paxton's been great or whatever, he's been healthy. And that would, if he was still on this Dodgers team and was still healthy right now, that would make him the only starting pitcher who's stayed healthy all season. Because of the fact that, like, we especially have had a lot of outings recently where guys weren't able to go deep into games, so it was really taxing the bullpen. And we saw that in, like, the Diamondbacks series where we're still able to take 3 or 4, and that was super important. the one game they kind of just had to punt because pitchers were being used so heavily in all the different games that you had to tell, who was it, Justin Robleski, to just go out there and throw till your arm falls off, and it doesn't matter. Sorry, dude, we just need to save some pitchers. So I think that looking at those situations, I think we can say now, like, hey, I don't know why they did that, and they really never should have. I understand that they wanted to free up innings for some of the younger guys, and that they were able to bring Robleski up at the time, and Knack has been up and down here and there, but we've also still had to roll out bullpen games, and we've also still had starters go like 2 or 3 innings, and everybody has been hurt. So, I think it's very fair to point out, like, the James Paxton trade was a mistake. It would have been cool if he retired as a Dodger because he stayed healthy and would have at least given some innings, so that way we wouldn't have to beat Justin Robleski's arm off of him and then have things like that happen. So, but shout out to James Paxton for a good career.
Yeah, I mean, how were they gonna know all of this was gonna go down the way it did, right? Sure. That's really hard, but you're right. Yeah, it probably regretting it now, you know? Yeah.
Well, as we pay homage to James Paxton and his career, we do want to mention that the Sick Podcast, The Dodger Zone, is brought to you by Homage. Homage specializes in ultra comfy, high quality looks, repping sports, pop culture, and more legendary moments. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description. It'll take you to the website. They have tons of great clothes. They have tons of great apparel. It's a really fantastic site.
And they just always have new stuff. Like, I'm gonna buy another one. I can't help it, Ryan. I can't. they have a new Caitlin Clark one, and I'm like, I can't. How am I not gonna get this Caitlin Clark shirt? Everybody, I can't. So I'm gonna give it more of my money because those are the softest shirts I own, which is ridiculous. I'm
very, very excited to wear my sweatshirt finally because it is not 100 degrees anymore.
Yes. Me too. For sure.
Yeah, we're finally gonna make it. That'll be great during the postseason, assuming that it's not like 90 degrees and on fire in the postseason again. But
it will be. It will be because
every October.
For some reason, October nowadays it's hot as shit.
Yeah.
October. So.
Oh, God. We get some solace coming soon. It's okay. But then we'll probably be on fire again. So let's talk about the offense a little bit here before we wrap up. As we mentioned, Shohei Ohtani. He's at 47 and 48 now. So he's going to get 50-50. Like he's following the trajectory pretty well. He's probably going to go like 52-52 or something like that. Yeah. I mean, what more can you say? It's really been incredibly impressive to watch. Amazingly fun to be a part of. And MLB Network, you guys can stop showing the graphic of the Triple Crown watch for Marcell Ozuna because he's not gonna get it. I don't know. Sorry, hate to break it to you. He's had a good season too, but they're still showing at the bottom of their screen. They're showing like the Ohtani 50-50 watch, and then it'll be Aaron Judge Triple Crown watch, who of course is going to lead in homers and RBIs. But I think it's either Bobby Witt or
I think it's Bobby Witt.
Is it Bobby Witt who leads the AL in batting?
Last it was Bobby Witt. I checked.
He's up by a lot too, so it's like it's not really even close there. And then they show Marcell Ozuna Triple Crown watch, where he is not leading in any of the Triple Crown categories. He's in the top 3 in all of them, but of course he's second to Ohtani in home runs, and he's like 8 behind or something. Like it's not particularly close. And he's a couple RBIs up on Ohtani, which is hilarious because Ohtani's batted leadoff for half of the season and is now eclipsed 100 RBIs. Really just immensely impressive to watch. I do want to bring up this point, and we have talked in way too much detail about the idea of Francisco Lindor being the National League MVP. But I have to bring it up because last week, John Heyman, known baseball insider, writes for the New York Post, he claimed that West Coast bias is going to lead to Francisco Lindor not winning the Triple Crown. Which is just such a wildly stupid thing to say. And the thing is that this is not the first time that Jon Heyman has brought up this idea of West Coast bias. For those of you who don't follow sports media too closely, East Coast bias comes from the idea of time zones. Okay, it's all because of time zones. When the Dodgers have their first pitch at 7:10 here, that's 10:10 on the East Coast. So a lot of people don't watch West Coast sports because they're going to bed. Like, this goes back to way back when, in terms of like newspapers and deadlines and everything. Like, East Coast biases because of like national newspapers and sporting publications would have to say like, oh, we don't know how this game ended because the game ended after our deadline. So because of that, East Coast teams would have greater coverage, and that's fine. It's totally understandable. If we lived on the East Coast, we would not watch that much West Coast sports. It's just how it is. Of course, like ESPN was established in Hartford, Connecticut, and was there until like the mid 2000s when they finally put an LA campus. So like, East Coast bias is a thing that is baked into sports coverage, and it's just, I'm not complaining about it. That's just reality. That's just what it is. Jon Heyman claims that West Coast bias happens specifically in MVP voting in baseball, and that's because, and I'm not kidding, the last time he brought this up was 2 years ago when Aaron Judge was pursuing 61 home runs, and people were still bringing up that Ohtani was worthy of MVP discussion because of how amazing and historic of a season he's having and how it's unlike anybody else. His argument against Ohtani, and he kept saying like, well, people are bringing up Ohtani because of West Coast bias, and West Coast bias exists because the Angels have won 4 MVPs in the last decade, and the Dodgers had that Rookie of the Year run in the 90s. Mm-hmm. That's it. That was his proof. That's all. Where he said that there's a gigantic West Coast bias because Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani were good. Like, that's insane. These are 2 of the best players in baseball at the time, 2 of the best players in the history of baseball, and God forbid they win MVPs. I didn't go back to the Rookie of the Year voting in the mid 90s and saw if there were any East Coast teams that were somehow more deserving. But that's the thing, John. You have to argue that the team or the player is more deserving and not getting the recognition in order to argue that there's a bias there. And you argued, I thought pretty well last week, that people are going to point out that Francisco Lindor is having a season that is worthy of looking at for MVP discussion, but that doesn't mean that he should win it. That's not what you were saying.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. And I enjoy the conversation. I'm happy to talk about it.
Yes.
But Ohtani is going to win it. He's doing something nobody has ever done. And what was it? Only 6 players have done 40-40, and he's going to go over. He's going to go over 50. Unless something terrible happens, that we're obviously knock on all the wood. He's going to go over 50-50. And it's funny because I actually think that there may be people out there who have an unbiased, or maybe that's not the word, who are going to not want to vote for Ohtani because he's a Dodger, instead of saying that they're going to vote for him because of West Coast bias. Actually, I think it's the other way around. I think there's going to be people who don't vote for him because he's a Dodger and because they're tired of voting for him. He has some things that may go against him, like in the NBA, Nikola Jokic. They didn't want to give him the MVP again because they were like, we already voted for him. Like, there may be fatigue when it comes to Ohtani, but he is going to win. So that whole thing is silly. It's silly. Yes. And like, again, I like the Francisco Lindor conversation because I think it's valid. Yes, what he's doing is great. And unfortunately for him, he's doing it in a year where Ohtani's doing this. And it sucks because I really thought Pete Alonso was a former MVP for the Mets. The Mets have never had an MVP. So like, I get it. You are sad and like, this is exciting. I get it. It's just unfortunate that it's happening at this time because I do think it's really cool what he's doing. I do put value in the fact that he plays defense and offense, and that he has played every single game and will play. That's the plan. All 162 games. So it's like, I get it. I understand the discussion, but no, he's not. He's gonna get some votes, and he's gonna be number 2. He's gonna be the second one right there. Like, good for you, dude. But Ohtani is going to win it, and that's so funny because I really do think there will be a little bit of fatigue with some of the voters because it's Ohtani and because he's a Dodger now. Mm-hmm. So that's so silly. It's just so silly.
It's literally East Coast bias. The reason why Francisco Lindor is even being mentioned in the MVP discussion is the definition of East Coast bias, where they are taking somebody who's on their side of the country, yet putting them into a discussion by saying that they should win it, even though they're not the most deserving. I can prove to you that they're not the most deserving. It's very obvious that they're not, but if we want to go into the numbers, let's do it. When you compare Ohtani and Lindor's numbers next to each other, here are the categories that Francisco Lindor is leading in. Games played. He has 3 more games on Ohtani. Plate appearances. He has 9 more plate appearances, probably from having 3 more games. Yeah, that's it. That's the only one. There's every single offensive category Ohtani is leading in, and it's not even close. And to mention the 50-50 point, again, we've talked about the idea that yes, stolen bases are easier to come by nowadays. However, if you look at the fact that Ohtani is also stealing at an over 90% success rate, and the league average is in the 70s, right, it is very impressive what he's doing. So. Yeah. I know we keep banging this drum, but that's because Mets fans can't shut up about Lindor. And the answer is simple. And people keep insisting that it's not. No, it is. Ohtani is the MVP in the National League. I do not care that he's not a DH. He still has a full win in WAR on Lindor, and that takes defense into account. In fact, he gets a negative point because of the fact that he doesn't play defense, and he's still got a full win on him. It's not close. Sorry.
Honestly, like, he would have to not reach 50-50. He would have to, I don't know, in order for Francisco Lindor to win it. But I mean, I really love it because today it'll be on Wednesday, Francisco Lindor literally broke up a no-hitter for the Mets. And then Ohtani starts the game for the Dodgers and hits a homer. Like, I love it. I love that this is happening, though. Even though I agree with you, Ohtani's going to win it. I love it. I think it's so great. If Francisco Lindor wants to keep stepping it up just in case, guess what? I hope Ohtani keeps stepping it up. Like, it's so good. As a baseball fan, I love it. I love it. But if you're telling me that he's going to win, that's where I laugh at you, because he's not. But I am enjoying the entire process happening right before our eyes, because it's great. I mean, it's super great, Yeah.
All right. Well, that's case is closed. We're not. We've talked about this so much. We don't need to keep banging this drum. We will get to celebrate Ohtani's MVP and hopefully a World Series ring, but that, please God. Let's wrap things up here before we hear about your trip to Oakland. We do want to shine a spotlight on one new Dodger, and that's Tommy Edman. This is back-to-back multi-home run games for Edman.
I don't know. Was it back to back or maybe
or was
a game apart or something like that?
Yeah, two of the games against Chicago. It might have been broken up, but he's been tremendous. And the power is really unexpected too. Like to get this sort of power from Tommy Edman is very exciting. His defensive versatility we have praised. Unfortunately, he did have that errant throw in the second game there. A little bit. That was bizarre because I think he didn't really know which person he was going to throw it to, and then both Rojas and Monse didn't know which one of them it was supposed to go to, and then it just kind of went between everyone. That whole inning was just a complete defensive collapse, but I don't, it's hard to really blame that on anyone. I mean, Kike's play shouldn't have. Okay, that was pretty easy, but
in those situations, it's like a bit of a ripple effect. Like there's one little mistake that leads to like everyone else. So I'm with you. Like, there was a glitch. We'll call it a glitch in that moment. But Tommy Edman, man, like what he's been doing, I just didn't expect it. So then I'm even more appreciative of it. Maybe that's my mistake because I didn't think that this was what I was going to see. I thought I was going to see a great defensive player and occasionally he would get a hit to move things along. Not what he's doing right now. Like, good for you, dude. Good for you. And we've said this with Bo last week, that the Dodgers tend to be stoic. So seeing Tommy Edman just live in this moment and like, just get emotional about it, get so excited. Like it's nice to see. It's nice to see. It's nice that we're having other players step up offensively. Because I told you in the text, like against the Cubs scored minimum of 6 runs. So like our offense had to really deliver to win that one game or even stay in the game. Because it wasn't like the Cubs won, but that the robbery, that Max Muncy's homer in game 2, that was, can we blame the fan? You know what? Blame the damn fan on that one. Yeah. I forgot about that. Anthony Banda, you're no longer the most annoying of the week. It is that fan that literally dropped the ball. He closed his eyes. Bro, like you had one job at that point, and that was insane. Insane.
If you're gonna interfere, go full Bartman. Just get in the way. But I mean, also shout out to Pete Crow Armstrong for being apparently he's prime Ken Griffey Jr. I had no idea.
Amazing.
Yeah. Also, from Sherman Oaks, by the way, another Harvard Westlake guy. So there you go. And also, did you know former Met, actually a Mets farmhand, and he came to the Cubs for Javi Baez.
Stop.
Wow. Well done. I'm proud of you. That dude's ridiculous. That was it. It was a punchline by that point. It was every ball did not matter where it was. You're like, oh well, Pete Crow Armstrong's going to catch it, and then he does, and then you're like, he like screwed up on that one, and like that one looked like a glitch too. Like I've seen that in MLB The Show where a ball hits to the outfield and the outfielder is like 10 feet away and suddenly they zoom into the spot and they catch it. And I'm like, what the hell? Like that's not real, but apparently it is real. Pete Crow Armstrong can do that. But yes, shout out to Tommy Edman. Well done. And hopefully he's another guy who like, he kind of fits the mold of somebody who could really step up in the postseason. He's a scrappy player with like surprising pop and great defensive ability and really lengthens out the lineup nicely. He's been hitting in the middle of the lineup in Teoscar Hernandez's absence, which we didn't even mention Teoscar's injury, but he's kind of back now, so it's fine. But thank God that wasn't bad. We're all good there. Okay. Let's close things out because we had talked about this last week. You got to do something pretty fascinating. I find fascinating. You went up to Oakland for a day to watch the A's Mariners. Please talk about this experience.
For 10 hours, like not even a day. It was a 10-hour trip. It cost me too much money, but what are we gonna do, right? For 10 hours. I flew out with Bree, who also works with us on Fox Sports Radio, and we wanted just to watch an A's game before they wrap things up. And I've never been to the Oakland Coliseum, which is the 6th oldest stadium in baseball. And honestly, like everyone told me, the area is trash. It's trash. Yeah, the area was trash, but the stadium really like had like a homey feel to it. I really liked it. I'm so glad I went. I wish there would have only been like 7 people like the rumors were. No one's at these games. There was definitely a couple thousand people there, but we had such a good time. It was hot, but not unbearable. We were right there. Like we were talking, Bree was like, man, I've never seen the veins in their forearms like that. Like that's how close we were. we bought those seats because we wanted to, I wanted to see Julio Rodriguez up close and personal. And so we no regrets. A lot of fun. It was warm. So we actually didn't even drink that much. I like my cocktails, Ryan.
Yes.
It was so warm that we didn't even drink that much because it's kind of hard to want to keep drinking when it's hot. But that's a good thing. Expensive drinks at a ballpark. But we did have one or two, but we definitely pounded water just to maintain the hydration and the heat. But everybody was very nice. Everyone was super cool. Even on the plane, what was funny is on our flight there was two women next to me, full Dodgers get up, headed to the game with their MLB passports. They showed me their stamps. They showed me all the places they've been. The people in front of us started listening to us. They turn around. They're like, we're going too. Here's our passport. Then two guys further down. Oh, yeah, we're going to the game. On the flight, 15 to 20 people were going to that game.
Wow.
It was quite funny. And we saw them at the airport, saw them at the game. Then on the way back, they were there. It was crazy that we weren't the only ones wanting to kind of check it off the list type of thing. I anticipate them destroying it once they officially move out. Because again, the surrounding area, there's nothing there. No reason to keep it alive in a sense, but super homey, super you feel, and there was only a few signs that said, what's his name? John Fisher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only a few.
Only a few.
F John Fisher. You know what I mean? But super fun. They don't have bullpens, which is weird to see up close and personal when the pitchers are warming up right there as the game is going on. Because it's bro, one foul ball and you're not paying attention. Your pitcher's out. It's so close to the game. So it's really weird. But I'm glad we went. We had a really great experience. And check it off the list. The Oakland Coliseum. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. And to hear that other people, this is not a super rare thing for other people to
not at all.
Wild commutes to baseball games. That's interesting. That's very
trust me. We were so we're not that stupid. All right, that's good. That's good. There's others that are gonna do it with us, and we cheered for both. It was a high scoring game. The A's and the Mariners both scored literally until the end, and we cheered for both back and forth. It was a good time. It was a good time.
That's awesome. That's a lot of fun. You see, listen, remember, baseball can be fun. We don't have to be stressed out about everything. Baseball can be fun. However, we're also kind of A's fans aren't exactly having a good time right now, but that's going to be a while until they find happiness in their team again. And they would they'll have to follow them to Vegas in order to do that. Or, I don't know. We'll Or they could. Rob Manfred said that they, since they got a team in San Francisco, they should stop whining and just watch them instead.
So that guy's such a treat. He's such a treat.
Oh God, yeah. What a charming man. His retirement in 5 years cannot come soon enough. All right. This is the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone. My name is Ryan Bershinger. She is Monse Bolaños. Monse, where can they follow you at?
You can follow me across social media at Monse Bolaños. Nice and easy. Follow me at Ryan Bershinger. Bo is at Bo Not Jackson. B-A-O-U. Now you get it right when he's not here. Yeah. You get it right when he's not here. Maybe seeing it is what screws me up. Maybe I have to. So this is the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform, Spotify, Apple, what have you. And follow us on Twitter at SickPodDodgers. So until next time, let's have some fun for this next week, shall we? Hopefully we're talking about Ohtani 50-50 next time and not mentioning Francisco Lindor. Domo arigato, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, the Dodger Zone, on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.